Have you ever felt like you need a PhD in 5 different tools just to stand up a single Kubernetes cluster? Yeah, you're not alone. We're going to look at a newer, much simpler way to do things that throws a lot of that old complexity right out the window. It might just save your sanity.
You know, if you've ever actually built a Kubernetes cluster from the ground up, this quote probably hits really close to home. It just perfectly nails that feeling of wrestling with all these different clunky tools that don't want to talk to each other just to get one simple thing working.
I mean, it's this incredibly fragile chain, right? You've got one tool for the cloud infrastructure, another for setting up the servers, a different one for the operating system, and then still another to actually bootstrap Kubernetes. You have to ask yourself, there's gotta be a better way to do this. Okay, so let's actually pull back the curtain on this Rube Goldberg machine. What are all the little gears and levers and pulleys that make the old way of doing things so darn complicated and, honestly, so easy to break? This slide, right here, tells the whole story. On the left, that's the classic stack, 4 completely separate tools. You've got Terraform managing infrastructure, Ansible handling provisioning. Each one has its own language, its own logic, its own state file you have to worry about. Now look at the right. That whole stack just collapses into a much simpler, cleaner unit.
So what's the hero of our story? Well, it's a tool called Sidero Omni. It's built around this idea of being Kubernetes-native. And all that really means is it uses the language of Kubernetes to manage the infrastructure itself. It's a total game changer because you're using Kubernetes to build more Kubernetes. It sounds a little weird and meta, I know, but it's an incredibly powerful way to think about things. So here's the big shift. Sidero Omni basically becomes your single source of truth. It totally gets rid of the need for Terraform and Ansible because it talks directly to your infrastructure's API, in this case, Proxmox. It handles everything, creating the virtual machines, installing the Talos operating system, and bootstrapping the whole cluster, all from one spot.
Okay, so what does this actually look like in practice? How do we go from nothing to a fully running cluster? This is where you can really see just how elegant this whole thing is. And the workflow really couldn't be simpler. First, you get Omni running maybe just in a Docker container. Then, you tell it where your Proxmox server is. After that, you create some templates for what you want your control plane and your worker nodes to look like. And then, and this is the best part, you just apply a standard Kubernetes YAML file that describes your cluster. That's it. Omni just takes that file and makes it happen.
So what's happening under the hood? It's all being powered by a standard called the Cluster API, or CAPI for short. Now, CAPI itself can be a real beast to work with directly. But what's great is that Omni acts like a friendly user interface on top of it. It does all the complicated CAPI stuff for you, so you don't have to.
All right, so we've covered the how. Let's get to the why. Why is this whole Kubernetes native approach such a massive deal? What are the real-world benefits?
First off, and this is a big one, you get to say goodbye to the dreaded Terraform state file. If you've ever had one of those get corrupted or lost, you know it's a nightmare. It's a single point of failure that can stop everything in its tracks. With this approach, the real state of your world just lives inside Kubernetes itself. Need to scale up? You don't have to run some complicated script. You literally just open a YAML file, change a number from, say, replicas 3 to replicas 5, and apply it. The system automatically sees that you want 5 nodes but only have 3, and it creates the new ones for you. It's a huge shift from telling the system how to do something to just telling it what you want the end result to be. This is also a huge advantage. You could have your control plane running on some powerful, reliable bare metal servers, but maybe your worker nodes are just disposable virtual machines. With Omni, you manage both of them through the exact same unified interface. It doesn't care if it's physical or virtual.
But let's be honest, the biggest upgrade here is just the reduction in mental overhead. It's so much less to keep in your head. The learning curve is way smoother, and when something goes wrong, you're troubleshooting one system, not trying to figure out which of the 4 different tools is broken. Your whole workflow just becomes declarative and fits perfectly with GitOps.
Now, of course, no tool is the perfect solution for every single person or every single problem. So let's talk about where this setup really shines and what the potential catches might be.
For things like a home lab, a small team, or a pre-production environment, this Omni and Proxmox setup hits a real sweet spot. It's super minimal and easy to manage. If you're running a massive multi-tenant cloud service, you'd probably look at something more heavy-duty like Kamaji, which is built for that kind of scale, but it also comes with way more complexity.
You know, this whole choice really comes down to a classic debate. Are your servers precious pets that you name and carefully take care of, or are they cattle, nameless, disposable, and easily replaced? This Omni approach very much encourages you to treat your clusters like cattle, which is really the modern, scalable way to think about infrastructure.
Okay, and here's the one catch you really need to know about. The Proxmox provider for Sidero Omni is technically still in beta. Now, for most of the common stuff you'd want to do, it's already rock solid. But if you have a really unusual setup, you might find a few rough edges. It's just something to be aware of.
So if all this sounds interesting and you want to give it a try, you're in luck. The person who originally wrote about this setup made a great walkthrough video and even shared a starter repository on GitHub to get you up and running super quickly.
And that kind of brings us to a final interesting thought. As tools like Sidero, Omni get better and better, it really seems like the answer to infrastructure complexity is, well, just using the Kubernetes API for everything. Are we slowly moving toward a future where all of our infrastructure is just defined as another Kubernetes resource? It's a pretty fascinating question to think about. Thanks so much for tuning in.